Yesterday we saw the importance of beginning the story of Jesus' birth with a memory of the book of Genesis and seeing Jesus as the fulfillment of Israel's history. Then we have a genealogy. Our tendency is when we see a genealogy to jump right over that because it just doesn't seem that important to us. But it was definitely important for the early readers of Matthew's gospel. It should be important for us as well. Now, I don't want to read through the genealogy, but at the very end, Matthew 1:17, all those listed above include 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the Babylonian exile, and 14 from the Babylonian exile to the Messiah. Now, if you add them all up, it amounts to 40 generations that are listed here. What Matthew, the author, actually does is he leaves out some generations. Don't worry about that. What our translation says that so-and-so was the father of so-and-so. It's not totally literate. It's so-and-so was the ancestor of so-and-so. So in some cases, he leaves out a few generations, talks about grandchildren, even great-grandchildren, but he reduces it to 14, 14, 14. First question is, why 14? And the answer is, we really don't know. One possibility is the effort to get to the number 40. There are 14 here, starting again, 14, and then 14. You add those up, there's actually 40 generations that take place there. The number 40 seems to be important in Israel's history. 40 years in the desert seems to be a number of completion. So Jesus completed Israel's history. Another possibility is that if you look at the Hebrew letters in the name David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet, each letter stands for a number. The letter Dalet is 4, the letter Vav is 6. 4, 6, and 4, 14. We don't really know, but those are two possibilities. Second thing we notice in the genealogy is that women are mentioned. There are 4 women who are specifically mentioned. The first is Tamar. If you remember the story of Tamar, it's not a pretty story. She was married to one of the sons of Judah. That son died. Judah's other sons refused to give her a son that she could call her own to continue on the line of Judah's first son. So Judah just kind of pushes her aside and ignores her. She tricks him, seduces him, and ends up having a child by her father-in-law. And that child is one of Jesus's ancestors. Second woman mentioned is Rahab. Rahab was the prostitute in Jericho. Amazing. A Gentile woman occurring in Jesus's lineage. The next woman mentioned is Ruth, a Moabite. It's interesting that in the Old Testament, Moabites and Edomites are 2 of the nations specifically named, saying, "You shall not give your sons to marry Moabite or Edomite women." And yet, another Gentile woman ends up in Jesus's lineage. And then finally, we have Bathsheba mentioned. You know the story of Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah, who himself was not Israelite, he was a Gentile. I think what Matthew is trying to portray is that Jesus' lineage includes the Gentiles because Jesus' death included the Gentiles. The third thing that we notice in the genealogy is it traces the genealogy through Judah. Important because David's line came through Judah, and the Messiah was to come through Judah. It's very important to show that Jesus was in David's line. Some have asked why it traces Jesus' lineage through Joseph when Joseph was not Jesus' father. Well, he was his adoptive father. And the lineage of the king passed through the man. So that's really the only thing that Matthew could have done to show that Jesus, the adopted son of Joseph, was indeed of the line of David and could become King Messiah.